Alright, the next thing I want to cover is working with your metal. You have received a piece of copper that is 6 inches by 6 inches, and this piece is going to be used for some of our samples. Now, some of you will notice that there is a protective covering on one side of this sheet. You probably want to peel this off. If we were gonna be using this for a piece, we might want to keep it on for a little while, like if we were working on a piece of jewelry or something. But in the case of what we're going to be doing here, you probably want to peel that off and just remove that, and throw that in the garbage, and then you'll notice that we have a really pristine sheet of copper that we can start to work with. Now, our first samples are going to be to create a set of what are called surface embellishment samples. We're going to be doing, I'm just going to write on here, one stamping sample, and this will be a sample where we start applying stamping tools or a hammer, creating hammer marks on the surface of the metal to create a surface texture. And then we will be doing 3 roller printing samples. So we're going to have 3 roller print. And 3 roller print samples are going to entail taking materials that you bring in. So you need to be looking for materials that you can bring in next class, and you'll be reading the roller printing handout and reading about what materials will actually work for this. And we'll be taking those pieces and running them through a machine called a rolling mill to emboss or imprint. It's very similar to like if you went to a one of our nation's landmarks, and you can put a penny in and it'll actually emboss or roll an image or something onto that penny. So it's a very similar process. So this is what we have, and each one of these samples are going to be 2 inches by 2 inches. Okay, so we're going to have 1 2-inch by 2-inch, and then 3, so 4 in total. So we need to take our sheet of copper, and we want to divide it up into sections that we can use for these samples. So again, you'll notice that we are setting at 6 inches by 6 inches. Now we're going to be using a machine called a Stomp Shear, and the Stomp Shear is a guillotine shear that cuts metal, and we do not have to worry about allowing for a kerf. Normally, if we were laying out wood and we were going to cut it with a table saw, we would have to take the thickness of the blade and use that as a blade allowance, sometimes referred to as a kerf. And so we would lose material. So in laying out a piece of wood, you would have to allow for that. If you just took off measuring and you just measured, 2 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches, and then the blade went down that line, you'd be losing material. In the case of our guillotine shear, we do not lose any material. Okay, so when we lay this out, we can actually lay out, and I'm just going to mark, and there's my 2-inch mark. And there's my 4-inch. And you'll notice I'm using a Sharpie and I'm using the fine tip. Do not use the fat tip of the Sharpie. It's just too wide of a line, and you're limited on accuracy. We will talk about ways of getting even more accurate using a scribe and a layout fluid. But for now, this will do the job. And I want these to be 2 by 2, and I would like for them to be as close as possible, but they do not have to be absolutely perfect. Now, if I'm going to cut on the Stomp Shear, I really only need this beginning line and end line to be able to line up the cutting blade with the material. But I'm going to go ahead and give myself a line. This just kind of helps me make sure that I've got the right mark that I'm working with. And my Sharpie is running out. I need a new Sharpie, it looks like. Okay, that's not great, but it'll do for what we're doing right now. I'm gonna try to write on something here, see if I can get it working again. Yeah, there we go. And again, make sure your ruler, and this ruler is in your toolkit. You receive one of these that you check out and use in your toolkit. Now you notice I just messed up there because my ruler is trying to do this for the camera, and let's see if we can get this better now. So we want to line that up and get that very, very accurate. That's something we want to work on this semester is accuracy. Let's go back and redo this first one. All right, so we have that. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and measure now this direction, and we'll lay out our 2-inch mark, and we'll lay out our 4-inch mark, and then we'll do the same thing here. There's 2 and 4. And now I should be able to lay this down and continue the line. And continue the line. Okay, so now we have the divided. Now we do not need to cut all of these up. We're going to use more of this material, so I really only need, 1, 2, 3, right, 4 for all my samples. So I'll probably come in and cut, this and get 3 there, and then I might cut this and get 2 there. Okay, so that's what we want to do. I'm going to grab the brass. We're going to do a piece of brass as well. Now the brass, we'll only need 1 of these, but I'm going to go ahead and I'll lay out and do a strip. So let's do 2 right there, 2 inches by 2 inches. Now we can go ahead and lay that out. And we'll go ahead and do 2 inches here. That's really all I need is just that 1 piece. Alright. Now we have that. Okay, so now we're going to cut these on the Stomp Shear. Alright, this device is called a Stomp Shear, and the way this works is you've got a blade that is contained right as a part of this part right here. Okay, so you'll see this is a blade right here, and then this whole front section is a guard. All right, and the guard keeps you from getting your fingers in there. Okay. And then on the other side, if I move around here to the back side, you'll see there's a blade that is right here. Okay, so you've got a blade that basically, slides against another blade to be able to shear the material. And then below is a foot pedal that you step on to make the blade on the top come down and shear. And so I'm just going to show you kind of from this corner. You can see where there's the blade is up, and then it comes down and it interfaces with the blade right here, and it shears the metal. Okay, now it is called a Stomp Shear, but you should never be very super rough on this machine, because you're going to come down and kind of go like that, but you don't want to slam it too hard. And then the other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to just take your foot off of it when it's all the way down, because it's spring loaded, so it wants to pop back up. Okay, but make sure you ride your foot all the way back up as the blade comes up, and that'll keep from jarring the machine and throwing it out of alignment. Okay, so the way that we're going to set up our materials, we're basically going to feed the material in. Now I like to work off of the right side, you can do multiple people can get on this machine at the same time and use it. And you'll notice I'm looking down in between. So let me just show you here. I'm looking down in between the guard and the blade, and it's going to be hard to see in here, but I'm looking for my finger. You can just barely see my finger underneath of there, and I'm looking to line up the metal with the edge of the blade. So we're going to line this up, and you'll kind of see here, because here's the edge of the blade right there, and I'm going to line up my line with the edge. And then I'll come over and do the same thing over here. And this is going to be hard to see on camera, but we'll do this in class so you can see exactly. You're going to all do this yourself. And then once you have that lined up, you'll hang on to your metal, and you'll make sure and bring the blade guard down. It will grip this first. Now you do need to be careful. I've never had a student get hurt on this machine, but I have had students pinch their finger a little bit, like the tip of their finger. So if your tip of your finger is right there, it will get pinched by the guard. It won't cut it off. It'll get pinched by the guard, and it'll raise up a blood blister. And so make sure your fingers are back a little bit. And then once that guard is touching, I want to show you something. If you try to move this, it will not move. The guard is keeping the metal in place. So once I've done that, then I'm just going to stand on the pedal, and I'm going to put both feet up on it like so, and then I'm just going to give a slight jump, and then I very gently ride the lever back up, the pedal, and you'll notice that my piece just fell, and we sheared it, and we got a really nice clean cut. All right, and then I can move this out of the way, and then I can rotate this. And I don't always trust this edge. This gets kind of shifted every once in a while. We try to tune it each semester, but I don't always trust it. If a student's been using this and it has gotten jarred or moved or something. And so I'll line up my lines again. And then this time I'll probably only need to use one foot. Okay, I don't have to put both feet on. Okay, and then I cut it, and I'll line up the other one. Okay, we're lined up. Okay, now I want to point out another way that you could get hurt. If you are doing one foot, if your foot using one foot only, if your other foot is underneath, you could pinch your toes because there is a lip on this pedal. So don't have your other foot underneath when you come down. And I have some of you who are maybe a little bit lighter weight may need an extra foot from someone to help out. Okay. So don't be afraid to ask for help. When your gauges get a little thicker, it makes it a little bit more difficult to cut. Okay. And I don't like to cut anything over 14 gauge on this. If it's over 14 gauge thick, we need to move to a saw instead and use either a jeweler's saw or a band saw to be able to cut that object. So now we're going to do a brass. The brass is going to be a little harder to cut, so I'm going to have to use a little bit more weight. I need to sharpen our blade too. Our blade's a little dull. And again, you can cut in the middle, doesn't matter. Like another person could be right here cutting while you're cutting at the other end, like so. All right, so now we have those. And again, you're gonna want one more copper piece. And then we'll make one more cut on it. Line it up. All right, and then there's that. So now we have, if we look at this, we've got 4 pieces. We've got 1 for our stamping, 3 for our roller printing, and 1 brass. So when we come into class, first thing, we are going to get straight to work on doing what we just did, where we're laying out our metal and we're cutting our various pieces that we're going to be annealing. All right, so we'll anneal all of these except for the brass. The brass is going to stay work hardened, unannealed. So we're going to anneal these, and then we'll be able to actually start working in class. So this is the first step we're going to take when we get into class, and you should know how to use the stomp shear, lay out your metal, and I will be giving you your toolkits and your metal first thing in class. Okay.